this course is as what we have been doing. You'll be required to have contact hours with you, and again, so there'll be 2 hours, and again you'll have tutorial hours, which of course will be assigned to you, and again methods of assessment. There are 2 of them. So we'll look at the 60% examination, and we have got the 40% coursework. So that's the course, the at least overview of the course outline. Then we'll need to know the course aim. For this is international trade and finance. It has to do with the trade, which is something that is globally. That's why the name international trade is coming in. So the course aim of this program, is to equip you as a student with the principles, theories, and convergences of international trade and finance. You need to have that, you have to equip yourself that even if someone asks you about international trade, you should be able to explain it very nicely, what it is all about. So this course will try as much as possible to equip you to have that knowledge of international trade. But now we have what are called the course objectives. You need to have the course objectives. So one of the course objectives is that as a student, you should be able to discuss the scope, the overview of international trade and finance. Discuss the scope of international trade and finance. If someone asks you, what is international trade and finance, you should be able to explain what this is all about without even hesitating. But you should be able to say, I think this is to do with A, B, C, D, without at least, you should have that knowledge yourself as a student. Not only that, again, another objective is to discuss theories of international trade. There are theories that are linked to international trade. And we'll be looking at each and every theory step by step by step until we finish. So we'll be looking at these theories. There are a number of theories. We'll be looking at around almost 4 or 5 theories of international trade and finance. And another objective is that as a student, you should be able to apply financial principles and coverage in terms of international finance. You have to apply the financial principles and either concepts or coverage of international trade. So there are several of them. You have to examine the economic integration and world trade agreements. So we are again looking at world trade agreements. We'll look at that from this based on the World Trade Organization. All these we are going to cover them up. And again, economic integration, where several countries, they have to be integrated economically and then we come up with at least one major principle in economic integration. Another course outcome or objective of this international trade and finance is to analyze exchange rate behavior. Exchange rate behavior. Even if it's say different countries, they have got their own exchange rate. And exchange rate, there are conditions that affect exchange rates. So look at these conditions that affect exchange rates. In America, they have got their own exchange rate. In Malawi, if you have to change US dollars to Malawi kwacha or Zim dollars, or Malawi kwacha at US dollars or Zim dollars to rupee and whatever currency, at least they differ based on the country where that currency is dominated. So look at these issues of exchange rates when we'll be looking at this international trade and finance. Again, this international trade and finance will help you as a student to examine the principles of long-term assets and liability management. So I've got other principles that are to connect with the long-term assets and liabilities. We'll look at what are these assets, what are these liabilities. But now, the fact that this is international trade, so look at these assets and liabilities based on the international level. So we're looking at those under the international level. Last one is we should be able to explain short-term assets and liability management. So as we'll be going on and on and on, should be able to define what is an asset and what are liability in terms of their management. So assets and liability management. So it's a very encouraging, very nice course, because we'll be looking at something to do with the global situation, not on national or domestic level, but we'll be looking at it under the global, or we'll be looking at it under the international situation. Then those are the aims. Those are the aims of okay. Those are the aims or the objectives of international trade and finance. So let's just look at each and every component based on the topics of coverage. Look at topics of coverage. But before I go to those topics of coverage, I'll try as much as possible to give you 2 assignments. I'll give you 1 assignment next week or any time from now, and then I'll give another assignment after or later. And make sure that you submit those assignments on time. Let's look at topics of study. Topics of study. What are the topics that you are supposed to study on international trade and finance? So you see, one of the topics that we'll be looking at is about, we'll define what this international trade and finance, what is it all about? What's the definition of international trade and finance? And again, looking at that definition, see, as it is, we'll be looking at this international trade in form of trade, buying and selling, that is globally. But again, the finance part is coming due to the price allocated to that. So, international trade and finance, we look at that in terms of prices of international commodities, whether currencies, and again, based on countries. So we look at that based on countries. And another issue that we'll look that we have that I need to talk about it is we look at international finance markets. We have got several markets. So we look at these financial markets and what are the roles of the financial markets. You see, these financial markets have to do with banks. They are not these ordinary markets. Of course, a market is where you buy and sell. That's very obvious. But again, there is the buying and selling in banks. That's why this international trade and finance, again, we'll be looking at the buying and the selling. Especially we are looking at currencies, exchange rates. Another area of interest, it's about exchange rates determination. So we're looking again on the exchange rate determination. What are the determinants that affect exchange rates? There are several determinants that do affect exchange rate. Because exchange rate is not something that goes straight. It fluctuates. It goes up and down based on economical crisis of a particular country. So there'll be up and down, up and down. It's not something which is straight. So look at those determinants that affect exchange rates. We'll look at those ones in terms of the prices of these commodities, like we're looking at money as you are exchanging it to another currency. Again, we'll look at another area of very, very interest. It's about the currency derivatives. So the currency derivatives, again, we'll be looking at these currency derivatives at international level. Then, another topic of interest that you have to bear in mind that you will learn, it's about world of international trade. So look at this world of international trade. When we'll be looking about world of international trade, we'll be looking at reasons for the growth of world trade. Why is it that world trade is growing? If you compare the world trade that was there in 1970 to this time around, which is 2023, you discover that things are not the same. World trade is growing. So in our discussions, we'll be looking at reasons for the growth of world trade. You see, it's very obvious that again world trade nowadays is growing due to this introduction of technologies. Not only technologies, but modern technologies. So the introduction of these modern technologies, it has led to the growth of international trade. So we'll be looking at that in our discussions. Again, within the very same area of world of international trade, another area that we'll look at is about international flow of goods, services, labor and capital. International flow of goods, services, labor and capital. this, they have the way they are being transferred from one country to another. So we'll be looking at this international flow of goods and services, labor from one country to another, with the inclusion of capital. With the inclusion of capital. You have to know goods and services, they are different. Capital and labor different. So we'll look at that. Another area within, again, world of international trade is about the problems and challenges of international trade and finance. Generally, in whatever situation, there are challenges and there are problems. So we'll be looking at what are the problems and challenges of international trade and finance. See, sometimes we'll be looking at that in terms of restrictions of commodities. Restrictions. We'll be looking at, again, completely ban of other commodities as problems. And again, sometimes we are looking at the tariffs, increase in tariffs as other problems. So in our discussions, we'll be looking at those issues so that we should be able to compare them with from one country to another. So that is some main other areas that we have to look into consideration. Each and every system, it has got its problems. That's why when we look at problems and challenges of international trade and finance. So we'll look at that because, again, in the very same challenges of international trade and finance, see, another area of interest, it's about culture. Look at culture, ethics. So the fact that we have got different cultures, again, they do affect international trade and finance. Our culture is different from that culture to those friends of ours. Again, language barriers, those issues, they do affect. Those are some of the problems that we'll be looking at, very critical in international trade and finance. We have another area that, again, you need to understand, and this is on theories of international trade. Theories of international trade. When you look at a theory, something that has been discovered, it has just been profounded, it has just been, someone has just developed it and has been and is using it. But these theories, sometimes the theories, they go hand in hand with the imagination, the way someone thinks. So we'll be looking at these theories to trade. There are several theories that in international trade and finance developed. One of the theories, if you look at this theory, which is called the Mercantilism theory, we have absolute advantage theories, we have the Heckscher-Ohlins theories, have the latest one, which is the new theories, new development theories, which sometimes, again, we have the life cycle product cycle theories, and many more theories. You know, in any theory that we'll be looking at, there must be someone who developed the theory. People like Ricardo, Ollins, Heckscher, and Ollins himself. People like, you know, several group of people, they developed theories. So we look at the theories, and then we'll be looking at how others capitalize the theory, because a theory is more or less like, today you can have a theory, someone can study your theory and can say, Matthews, your theory lacks ABCD. So someone brings another thing, capitalize on that one, modify it, or improve the theory. So each and every person had his or her own theories. Those are theories to trade. Then, so these theories to trade, as I have already said, we look at principles of absolute advantage. We look at principles of comparative advantage theory. We look at standard theory of international trade, factor endowment or Heckscher-Ollins theory, and alternative and extension theories. So when we look at these theories, what you have to bear in mind is about who developed the theory. And what is the theory about? What is the theory about? Again, when was the theory developed? And then another area is about implications of the theory, because there will be others who will be capitalizing on the theory. That if this guy said this, the issue, the next thing is cannot be the same. It can be the other way around. So you can start a theory, someone can come and then can capitalize on that theory. So, say these theories were developed in several countries by several people, like in India, like in United States, others had to come up with theories. In Africa, again, others had to come up with theories. So, but some of those guys who study international trade and finance, again, the economists would capitalize, because all those who formed this, most of them, they are the economists. Those economists are the ones that studied these international trade and finance theories. We have another area of interest, and this area of interest is to do with the international trade policies. International trade policies. So in international trade policies, we look at trade restrictions, When we are saying about trade restrictions, we look at why is it that other goods and services are not coming into a country. So there are trade restrictions preventing trade to come into the country, like tariff. If heavy taxes is being imposed, it can affect international trade. So we have got another one, the non-tariff barriers, new protectionism as other areas of interest that we look at. Again, custom union, economic integration, free trade areas. When we're looking about free trade areas, there are other areas that are being restricted. You cannot pass. You need to get an okay from that. So we look at these free trade areas, economical developments, and international resource management or movement, and multinational companies or compositions. Another area is about the fundamental of international monetary economies. So in international monetary economies, we look at the balance of payment, we look at the foreign exchange markets, we look at price adjustment mechanism, we look at monetary and asset market approaches to external balances. We have another area of interest, and this is again exchange rates, risk behavior, as another topic that we'll be looking at. You see, this is just an overview. We are just looking at what you are going to learn. All these you have to learn. We'll look at exchange rate risk behavior, where in exchange rate risk behavior, we'll connect it to government now, government influence on exchange rates. Because for exchange rates to be exchange rates, government sometimes has to come in. So there must be government influence on exchange rates. We have another area, is international advantage and interest party. So look at international advantage and interest party. Within again the very same area, we'll look at relationship among inflation, interest rates, and exchange rates. So we'll be looking at inflation, interest rates, and exchange rates. Another topic will be macroeconomic policies in the open economy. We'll define what is open economy. So look at fixed exchange rates, flexible exchange rates, price and output in the open economy, the aggregate supply and demand, fixed or flexible exchange rates. All that again we are going to look at today. Then another area will be long-term asset and liability management. Long-term asset and liability management. In long-term asset and liability management is where now we look at foreign direct investment, FDIs, foreign direct investment, FDIs, and their influence in the country. Again, we look at multinational capital budgeting. We look at country risk analysis and international cash management. International cash management. The last topic that we look at, it will be international finance itself. Where in international finance itself, we look much on international monetary system, We look at the past, present, and future, that is the forecasting. Look at international trade, and then the less developed countries, LDCs, and then the less, sometimes important, the least developed countries. We have again export instability. Why is it that export is not stable? And then international trade and long run term of risk determination. Finally, we look at the external debt problem, inward looking versus outward, strategies of the least developed countries. So that is our overview of the topics that we are going to look at. But now, what are the prescribed textbooks? In other words, what are the books that can be used? The first book is, we are looking at that international trade and economics that you can find. You can find any book to do with the international trade and economics, anything to do with the international economics, and again, most of them, they are international economics. So when you go to the library, you should be able to find these books. Before we look at other areas of this international trade and finance, before we start this international trade and finance, we define it. Do you have questions or any observation? Questions? Do you have questions or any observation? Or do you have any comment? Yeah, prescribed texts, you want to get them in the library, they are there. Or you can get soft copies. I have soft copies, I'll give them to you. I have them, I'll give them to you so that if you have problems. Right? Now, let's look at this international trade and finance. Let's define it. Let's look at this international trade and finance, its definition.